malicious compliance stepsister destroyed my baby shower fund, so I ruined hers. The notification on my phone made my stomach drop to my feet. Account balance, $47.23. I stared at the screen, my pregnant belly suddenly feeling like it was filled with ice water instead of my 7-month-old daughter. That couldn't be right. There should have been $847.23 in our family savings account, money I'd been carefully setting aside for months, working extra shifts at the diner despite my swollen ankles and constant nausea, all so I could throw myself a decent baby shower. My hand shook as I refreshed the banking app, praying it was some kind of glitch. But there it was again, $47.23. Everything else, gone. What the hell? I whispered, scrolling frantically through the transaction history. There it was, a withdrawal for $800 made yesterday at 2:47 p.m. Not by me. Not by my husband Jake, who didn't even have access to this account. But I knew who did. The front door slammed downstairs, followed by the sound of expensive heels clicking across our hardwood floors. My stepsister Melissa's voice drifted up, bright and cheerful as she called out to our parents. Mom. Dad. You won't believe how perfect everything looks. The venue is absolutely gorgeous, and the caterer says we can add those fancy macarons I wanted. My blood turned to lava. I hauled myself off the bed, my maternity dress sticking uncomfortably to my back, and waddled downstairs as fast as my condition would allow. Melissa stood in our family kitchen, practically glowing with excitement, her perfectly styled blonde hair bouncing as she gestured animatedly to our parents. She looked exactly like she always did, like she'd stepped out of a magazine, not a care in the world. Melissa. My voice came out deadly quiet. We need to talk. She turned toward me, her blue eyes widening with fake innocence. Oh hey. How are you feeling? You look tired. Where's my money? The kitchen went silent. Mom looked between us with that familiar expression, the one that said she already knew what was happening but was preparing to make excuses. Dad shifted uncomfortably by the coffee maker. I don't know what you mean, Melissa said, but her cheeks flushed pink. I held up my phone, showing the banking app. $800. Gone from the account yesterday. The same day you apparently had some magical emergency that required Mom and Dad to give you access to the family savings. Now honey, Mom started, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd heard my entire life. Melissa explained everything. She had an urgent situation. What situation? I snapped. Because she just walked in here talking about venues and caterers and fancy cookies. Melissa's facade cracked slightly. It was for the emergency I told you about. What emergency, Melissa? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish, scrambling. The thing with my car. And my apartment deposit. You know how expensive everything is these days. Your car looked fine when you pulled up. And you've lived in the same apartment for 2 years. Dad cleared his throat. Look, we're all family here. Maybe we can work something out. Work something out? I stared at them in disbelief. She stole from me. That money was for my baby shower, for your granddaughter's celebration. It's not stealing when it's family money, Melissa said quietly, but her words hit like a slap. That's when I knew. Looking at their faces, seeing Mom's guilty expression and Dad's uncomfortable shuffle, I realized this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. They'd planned this. Family money? I repeated, my voice rising with each word. Family money? I worked 60-hour weeks on my feet while pregnant to save that money. I skipped meals, I wore the same 3 maternity outfits for months, I didn't buy a single thing for myself because I wanted to give my daughter a proper celebration. Melissa had the audacity to look hurt. You don't have to be so dramatic about it. It's not like you can't just save up again. The shower is in 3 weeks, Melissa. 3 weeks. Well, maybe you should have planned better, she shot back, and there it was, the real Melissa. The one who'd tormented me since our parents got married when I was 12. The golden child who could do no wrong while I was constantly reminded how I should be more grateful for my blended family. Mom stepped between us, her hands raised like she was breaking up a playground fight. Girls, please. Let's just calm down and discuss this rationally. Rationally? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mom, she stole $800 from me and you're acting like we need to compromise about whose turn it is to do dishes. She didn't steal anything, Dad said firmly, and his words hit me like a physical blow. That account is for family emergencies, and Melissa had an emergency. What emergency? She still hasn't actually told us what the emergency was. Melissa's phone buzzed on the counter, and I caught a glimpse of the screen before she could grab it. It was a text from someone named Brittany with a string of party emojis and the words "Can't wait for Saturday. The decorations are going to be perfect." My heart stopped. What's Saturday? Nothing, Melissa said quickly, clutching her phone to her chest. But I was already putting the pieces together. Her excitement about venues and caterers. The expensive dress she was wearing, new, with tags I could see peeking out from the collar. Her perfectly done nails and fresh highlights that definitely cost more than my monthly grocery budget. You're throwing yourself a party, I said slowly. You stole my baby shower money to throw yourself a party. It's not a party, she protested. It's a celebration. For my promotion at work. Your promotion. I stared at her. You got promoted from the receptionist job you've had for 6 months, and that requires an $800 celebration? Mom and Dad exchanged a look that made my stomach churn. What aren't you telling me? I demanded. Melissa bit her lip, glancing around the room like she was looking for an escape route. Finally, she sighed dramatically. Fine. If you must know. I'm engaged. She held up her left hand, showing off a ring I definitely hadn't noticed before. A big, sparkly ring that probably cost more than my car. Engaged? I sputtered. Since when? Last week. And before you start crying about it, Brad wanted to keep it quiet until we could plan the perfect engagement party. Which is Saturday. Which is why I needed the money from the account. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You stole my baby shower money for your engagement party? I didn't steal anything, she snapped. Mom and Dad said I could use it. Tell her. I turned to look at our parents, waiting for them to deny it, to look shocked, to show some sign that they hadn't actively participated in this betrayal. Instead, Mom wrung her hands and said softly, "Honey, engagements only happen once. You can have a baby shower anytime." The room started spinning around me. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. You can have a baby shower anytime. Anytime? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Anytime? Mom, I'm 7 months pregnant. When exactly is this magical anytime supposed to happen? She had the decency to look ashamed, but she didn't take it back. Look, Dad jumped in, clearly trying to play peacemaker. Maybe we can all chip in and help you put together something nice. It doesn't have to be expensive to be meaningful. Chip in? I laughed bitterly. With what money? The money that's currently paying for Melissa's engagement party? You're being really selfish right now, Melissa said, examining her new ring like she was bored with this whole conversation. This is supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, and you're trying to ruin it with your drama. My drama? I could feel my blood pressure spiking, which probably wasn't great for the baby, but I couldn't help it. You literally stole from me. God, you keep saying that word. I didn't steal anything. Mom and Dad gave me permission to use family funds for a family celebration. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean the world revolves around you. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long. You know what? You're absolutely right. My voice was suddenly calm, which seemed to surprise everyone, including myself. The world doesn't revolve around me. Clearly, it revolves around you. Just like it always has. Melissa's eyebrows furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. I hope you have a wonderful engagement party. I turned to head back upstairs, then paused. Just out of curiosity, where are you having it? Since my money paid for it, I feel like I should at least know where it went. The Rosewood Gardens, she said proudly, apparently taking my change in tone as surrender. You know, that gorgeous venue downtown with the butterfly conservatory? Brad surprised me. He said nothing but the best for his future wife. And the caterer? Savannah's Kitchen. They're doing this amazing spread with chocolate fountains and a champagne tower. Oh, and we hired Harmony Strings for live music. She was getting excited again, probably thinking she'd won. The photographer is Marcus Chen. He's supposed to be the best in the city. Cost a fortune, but Brad insisted. I nodded thoughtfully. Sounds lovely. What time? 2 o'clock. Saturday afternoon. She practically glowed. It's going to be perfect. I'm sure it will be. I started up the stairs again, then called over my shoulder, "Oh, and Melissa? Congratulations. You deserve everything that's coming to you." I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves as I climbed the stairs, probably relieved that I'd given up so easily. Mom called after me something about working together as a family and finding a solution for everyone, but I didn't respond. Back in my bedroom, I sat down at my laptop and opened a new browser window. My fingers moved across the keyboard with steady purpose. Rosewood Gardens venue contact information. Savannah's Kitchen catering reviews. Harmony Strings booking policies. Marcus Chen photography cancellation terms. See, here's what my darling stepsister had forgotten in her moment of triumph. I'd been planning my own event for months. I knew exactly how these vendors operated, what their policies were, and most importantly, what could go wrong. I cracked my knuckles and got to work. If Melissa wanted to play games with my money, then we were going to play. But this time, I was setting the rules. The first call was almost too easy. Rosewood Gardens, this is Jessica speaking. How can I help you? I took a deep breath, letting my voice tremble just slightly. Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell. I'm calling about the Melissa Cooper event on Saturday. Oh yes. The engagement party. What can I do for you? I'm actually calling because... I paused, sniffling for effect. I'm so sorry, this is really hard for me to say. I'm Melissa's sister, and there's been a terrible family emergency. Her fiancé Brad was in a car accident this morning. The sharp intake of breath on the other end told me I had her attention. Oh my goodness. Is he okay? He's in critical condition. We're all at the hospital right now, and Melissa is just devastated. She asked me to call and cancel everything. She can't even think about party planning right now, you know? Of course. The poor thing. Don't even worry about the event, family comes first. I'll cancel everything right away. Thank you so much. And... I let my voice crack slightly. Is there any way to get a refund? I know it's short notice, but with all the medical bills. Absolutely. Given the circumstances, we'll process a full refund within 24 hours. Please give Melissa our thoughts and prayers. I will. Thank you for being so understanding. One down. The second call required a bit more creativity. Savannah's Kitchen, this is Marcus speaking. Hi, I'm calling about an order for Saturday? Under Melissa Cooper? Yes, the engagement party. We're all set for the chocolate fountains and champagne service. What can I help you with? This time I went with righteous indignation instead of tragedy. Well, I'm calling because we just found out some very disturbing information about your company's health standards. The line went quiet. Excuse me? My friend had her event catered by you last month, and half her guests got food poisoning. Half. We're talking about stomach issues for days. I've been trying to convince my sister to switch caterers, but she insisted on using you because someone recommended you. Now I see why. You must be paying people to cover up the bad reviews. Ma'am, I can assure you that's not true. We have excellent health ratings and... Look, I don't want to make this a big legal thing, okay? My sister is pregnant. Oh wait, no, that's not my sister. Never mind. The point is, we can't risk making people sick. We'd like to cancel and get our deposit back before this becomes a problem. Let me check our cancellation policy. The thing is, if you make this difficult, I'm going to have to post about this on every review site I can find. Yelp, Google, Facebook, the works. But if you just process the cancellation quietly, we can all pretend this conversation never happened. There was a long pause. Fine. I'll process the cancellation. You should see the refund in 3 to 5 business days. Make it 24 hours and we have a deal. Fine. 24 hours. 2 down. By the time I finished with Harmony Strings, emergency gig opportunity in Nashville that they couldn't pass up, and Marcus Chen, sudden equipment malfunction requiring all gear to be sent for repairs, I was feeling pretty satisfied with myself. But then my phone rang. Unknown number flashed across the screen. My stomach clenched as I answered. Hello? Is this the woman who's been calling around about the Cooper engagement party? My blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, who is this? This is Brad. Melissa's fiancé. And we need to talk. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I was sure he could hear it through the phone. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut the shit. Brad's voice was cold, controlled. Jessica at Rosewood Gardens called Melissa crying about my car accident. Funny thing is, I'm sitting right here, perfectly fine. So either I'm a ghost, or someone's been making some very interesting phone calls. I closed my eyes, my free hand instinctively moving to my belly. Brad, I can explain. Oh, you're going to explain all right. But not over the phone. Meet me at Brewster's Coffee on 5th Street in 1 hour, or I'm calling the police and reporting you for fraud. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to be the one in control, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Brad wasn't even supposed to find out until Saturday when everything fell apart. But now, my laptop chimed with a new email notification. 3 refund confirmations sat in my inbox, totaling nearly $800. At least the money part had worked. But if Brad was calling me, that meant he probably knew about all of it, which meant Melissa would know soon, which meant my parents would know, which meant I needed to think fast. 45 minutes later, I was wedged into a corner booth at Brewster's, my maternity dress stretched tight over my nervous stomach. I'd gotten there early, hoping to scope out the situation, maybe figure out an escape route if things went sideways. But when Brad walked through the door, I realized there was nowhere to run. He was bigger than I remembered from the few family gatherings he'd attended. Broader shoulders, harder jaw, the kind of guy who probably played college football and still hit the gym religiously. He spotted me immediately and stalked over with the confidence of someone who'd never had to question whether they belonged in a room. Well, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. The pregnant sister. Melissa's told me so much about you. I'm sure she has. I kept my voice steady, even though my palms were sweating. She said you were bitter. Jealous. Always causing drama because you couldn't stand that she was the successful one. Brad leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a bug under a microscope. What she didn't mention was that you were a straight-up psychopath. I'm not. For vendors, all cancelled within 2 hours, all with elaborate sob stories. He pulled out his phone and started reading from what looked like notes. Car accident, food poisoning cover-up, emergency Nashville gig, and mysterious equipment failure. Very creative. Very thorough. Very illegal. I lifted my chin. Prove it. Oh, I can prove it. See, here's the thing about lying to businesses, they keep records. Phone logs, caller information, timestamps. And when several vendors get suspicious calls about the same event on the same day, they talk to each other. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself not to show it. Jessica from Rosewood remembered your voice sounded familiar. Turns out you called them 3 months ago asking about pricing for a baby shower. Same voice, same phone number in their system. Shit. So here's what's going to happen, Brad continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You're going to call every single one of those vendors back. You're going to tell them there was a misunderstanding. You're going to grovel and beg and do whatever it takes to get our party back on track. And if I don't? His smile was razor sharp. Then I make some phone calls of my own. To your husband's workplace. To your doctor. To anyone who might be interested to know that Jake's wife has been running elaborate scams while 7 months pregnant. You wouldn't. Try me. The threat hung between us like a loaded gun. I stared at Brad across the coffee shop table, my mind racing through possibilities, consequences, escape routes. But every path I could see led to disaster. You're bluffing, I said, but my voice betrayed me with the slightest tremor. Am I? Brad pulled out his phone again, this time opening what looked like a contact list. Jake works at Morrison & Associates, right? Construction management? I wonder how his boss would feel about having an employee whose wife runs phone scams while pregnant. Doesn't exactly scream reliable family man, does it? My hands clenched into fists under the table. That's my husband's livelihood you're threatening. And that was my fiancé's engagement party you destroyed. Brad's eyes were cold, calculating. Seems like a fair trade to me. A barista dropped a tray of mugs somewhere behind us, the crash making me jump. Brad didn't even flinch. He just kept staring at me with that predatory smile, like he was enjoying watching me squirm. Besides, he continued, I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. What's that supposed to mean? See, while I was making my calls this afternoon, trying to figure out what happened to our vendors, I learned some very interesting things about you. Brad leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Like how you've been calling around to event planners for months, asking about packages and pricing. How you've been on waiting lists for venues. How you've been desperately trying to plan some kind of celebration on a shoestring budget. My throat felt like sandpaper. So it got me thinking about the timing. About why Melissa suddenly needed that money from the family account. About why you were so upset when that money disappeared. His grin widened. You weren't just mad about losing savings, were you? You were mad because Melissa took the money you needed for your own party. That's not. Your baby shower. Brad said it like he'd solved a puzzle. She didn't just take random money from you. She took your baby shower fund. And now you can't afford to throw yourself the party you've been planning for months. The words hit me like physical blows. Hearing him say it out loud, seeing the satisfaction in his eyes as he connected the dots, made everything feel 10 times worse. That's why you went nuclear on our vendors, he continued. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about a desperate pregnant woman who realized she'd been screwed over by her own family and decided to burn everything down rather than deal with it like an adult. You don't know anything about my family. I know enough. I know Melissa thinks you're pathetic. I know your parents obviously have a favorite, and it's not you. And I know you're sitting here 7 months pregnant, probably scared and broke and realizing that nobody's going to throw you the celebration you thought you deserved. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. Here's the thing though, Brad said, pulling out his wallet and dropping a 20 on the table like he was ending a business meeting. I actually feel sorry for you. So I'm going to make you a deal. What kind of deal? Fix our party. Call the vendors, grovel, get everything back on track for Saturday. Do that, and I'll make sure Melissa gives you back half the money she took. Half? I couldn't keep the outrage out of my voice. Half, he repeated firmly. $400. Enough to throw yourself a nice little baby shower at someone's house with grocery store cake and punch. The condescension in his voice made my vision blur red around the edges. Or, Brad stood up, towering over me, you can keep playing games, and I'll make sure you lose everything. I stared up at Brad, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. $400. A nice little baby shower with grocery store cake and punch. The words echoed in my head like a slap across the face. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, Brad said, adjusting his expensive watch. Call me by 9 a.m. with confirmation that everything's been fixed, or the real fun begins. He turned to leave, then paused, looking back over his shoulder. Oh, and just so we're clear, if you try any more creative phone calls between now and Saturday, I'll know. I've already given all the vendors a heads up about potential family interference. They'll be calling me directly if anyone tries to cancel again. The coffee shop door chimed as he left, leaving me alone in the corner booth with my racing heart and the bitter taste of defeat in my mouth. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching people come and go, normal people with normal problems who probably didn't have to choose between their dignity and their husband's job. But as the initial shock wore off, something else began to take its place. Not resignation, something sharper. More focused. Brad thought he was so clever, backing me into a corner, forcing me to choose between humiliation and destruction. What he didn't realize was that he'd just made a crucial mistake. He'd shown me exactly how much this party meant to him and Melissa. Enough to threaten my family. Enough to blackmail a pregnant woman. Enough to reveal just how desperate they were to make sure their perfect day went off without a hitch. Which meant they had just as much to lose as I did. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my recent calls, looking at the vendor numbers I'd memorized. Brad was right about one thing, I couldn't call them back with more fake emergencies. They'd be expecting that now. But there were other ways to skin this cat. My finger hovered over a contact I hadn't called yet, Sarah's Floral Designs. I'd found their information on Melissa's Instagram, where she'd been posting endless stories about her dream engagement party for weeks. Pictures of elaborate centerpieces, close-ups of exotic orchids, captions about only the best for my special day. Melissa's social media had been a goldmine of information, actually. She'd documented every single detail of her planning process, tagged every vendor, shared every inspiration photo. She basically handed me a complete blueprint of how to destroy everything she cared about. And she was still posting. Even now, probably while Brad was driving home thinking he'd won, she was sharing pictures of her dress fitting with captions like, "Can't wait for everyone to see the magic we've created." I clicked on her latest story and screenshotted everything. The florist tags, the cake designer's information, the rental company handling linens and chairs. All the vendors Brad hadn't thought to warn because they hadn't been part of my first wave of calls. But I needed to be smarter this time. More subtle. Brad was expecting me to fight dirty, so he'd prepared for obvious attacks. What he wasn't expecting was precision surgery. I opened my laptop and began researching. Not the vendors this time, I was researching Brad himself. His company, his social media, his professional connections. If he wanted to play the game of mutually assured destruction, he needed to understand that I had ammunition too. Bradley Morrison, Senior Marketing Director at Pinnacle Solutions. Interesting. A quick scroll through the company website showed they specialized in corporate image management and crisis communication. Their client list included several high-profile nonprofits and family-oriented businesses. Companies that probably wouldn't love discovering that one of their senior directors was threatening pregnant women. But that was Plan B. Plan A was much more elegant. I picked up my phone and dialed the florist. Sarah's Floral Designs, this is Sarah speaking. Hi Sarah, this is actually Melissa Cooper. I'm calling about my engagement party on Saturday. Oh, Melissa. Hi honey, how are you? Is everything okay? You sound a little different. I've been fighting a cold, I said quickly. Listen, I'm calling because I just found out some terrible news about the venue. What kind of news? Sarah's voice immediately shifted to concern. I took a shaky breath, letting genuine emotion creep into my voice, though not for the reason Sarah would think. They just called me an hour ago. Apparently there's been a major plumbing issue in the Butterfly Conservatory. Something about a burst pipe flooding the entire east wing where our ceremony was supposed to be. Oh no. That's terrible timing. I know, right? They're saying they can move us to their backup space, but Sarah. I let my voice crack slightly. It's awful. Just this tiny concrete room with fluorescent lighting. It looks like a cafeteria. All my beautiful planning, all the romantic atmosphere we talked about, it's ruined. Honey, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? Perfect. This was exactly the response I'd hoped for. Well, that's actually why I'm calling. The backup room has completely different dimensions, and the lighting is so harsh that all those beautiful pastel arrangements we planned are going to look washed out and cheap under those fluorescent bulbs. Oh, that's true. Pastels need soft, natural lighting to really pop. Exactly. So I was wondering, is it too late to completely change the color scheme? I know it's crazy short notice, but I was thinking maybe we could go with something darker? Deeper colors that might look better under artificial lighting? There was a pause as I heard Sarah flipping through what sounded like order sheets. Well, it would be challenging. I'd have to source completely different flowers, and the cost would be significantly higher since I'd need to rush order everything. Money isn't an issue, I said quickly. Brad and I just want to salvage what we can of our special day. What would you need? For deep, rich colors on short notice. I'd probably need to go with imported roses, maybe some burgundy dahlias, deep purple calla lilies. Nothing I can source locally. We're talking probably triple the original quote, and I'd need full payment up front to guarantee the rush delivery. I pretended to consider this, making small thinking sounds. Triple, you said? So instead of 1,200, we'd be looking at what, 3,600? That's right. And honestly, Melissa, I'd need confirmation and payment by tonight to make this work. The flower markets close early on Fridays. Tonight? I let panic creep into my voice. Oh God, I don't know if I can get to the bank before they close. My fiancé is stuck in meetings all day, and I don't have that kind of money just sitting in my checking account. I'm sorry, honey, but without guaranteed payment, I can't place rush orders. The suppliers require payment on delivery for last-minute requests, and I can't front that kind of money. What if I can't get the payment to you tonight? What happens to our original order? Another pause, longer this time. Well, I'd have to cancel the weekend delivery. The flowers are still at the supplier since we scheduled them to be delivered Saturday morning. If you can't use them, they just go back? The supplier would probably sell them to someone else. Weekend weddings, you know. There's always demand. Oh. I let my voice get small and defeated. So if I can't figure out the payment situation, we just have no flowers at all? I mean, I suppose I could throw together something basic with whatever I have in stock. Grocery store level arrangements, nothing like what we planned. But Melissa, for an engagement party like what you described, it would look terrible. I don't want to say terrible, but it definitely wouldn't match the vision we discussed. I was quiet for a long moment, letting her think I was processing this devastating news. You know what, Sarah? Let me call you back in an hour. I need to talk to Brad and see if we can figure something out with the bank. Of course, honey. But remember, I really need to know by tonight. I understand. Thank you for being so patient with me. As soon as I hung up, I started a timer on my phone. 60 minutes. That would give Melissa just enough time to panic when Sarah inevitably called her to confirm the color change and payment details. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. How'd the doctor appointment go? Right. I told him I had a prenatal checkup today to explain why I'd be out. Instead, I'd spent the afternoon systematically destroying my stepsister's engagement party and getting threatened by her psychotic fiancé. Asterisk everything's fine. Baby's healthy asterisk. Asterisk good. Love you. Making your favorite dinner tonight asterisk. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Jake had no idea what kind of war I'd started today. He was probably at work right now, completely unaware that his job might be on the line because his wife couldn't let sleeping dogs lie. But then I thought about Melissa's smug face in the kitchen this morning. About my parents choosing her happiness over mine, again. About Brad's casual cruelty, threatening my family like it was just another business negotiation. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered cautiously. What the hell did you do? Melissa's voice was shrill with panic. I'm sorry, what? Don't play dumb with me. Sarah just called asking about changing all my flowers and tripling the cost and some story about the venue flooding. What did you do? I took a deep breath, settling into my performance. Melissa, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been at the doctor all afternoon. Bullshit. This is exactly the kind of petty revenge you'd pull. Revenge for what? I thought we settled everything this morning. You're having your party, I'm dealing with my situation. What would I gain by messing with your flowers? There was a pause, and I could practically hear her brain working, trying to figure out how to prove something she couldn't prove. I know it was you, she said finally, but there was less certainty in her voice. Melissa, I'm 7 months pregnant and exhausted. I spent 3 hours at the doctor today and I'm about to fall asleep on my couch. I literally don't have the energy for whatever conspiracy you think I'm running. Then why would Sarah lie? Did she lie? Or did something actually happen with your venue and you're looking for someone to blame? Another pause. Longer this time. The venue is fine, Melissa said slowly. I just called them. Then maybe Sarah got confused? Mixed up your order with someone else's? These things happen, especially when vendors are juggling multiple events. I could hear her breathing on the other end, could practically feel her frustration radiating through the phone. If I find out you're behind this, you'll what? Steal more of my money? The line went dead. I smiled for the first time all day. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Brad. Very clever, his voice was ice cold. Flowers instead of venues. Confusion instead of cancellation. You think you're so smart. My stomach dropped. I don't know what. Cut the shit. Sarah called Melissa, Melissa called me, and guess what? I called Sarah back. Funny thing about florists, they keep detailed notes about their conversations. Including phone numbers of who calls them. Fuck. I'd used my own phone. Here's what's going to happen, Brad continued. You're going to call Sarah back in the next 5 minutes and straighten this out. Tell her you were confused, tell her you were having pregnancy brain, tell her whatever you want. But fix it. And if I don't? Then I stop playing nice. His voice dropped to a whisper. You think threatening your husband's job was bad? Sweetheart, I haven't even started yet. I know where you work, where you bank, what doctor you see. I know your husband drives a 2018 Honda with a cracked windshield and expired tags. I know you've been late on your electric bill twice in the past 6 months. My blood turned to ice water. How do you? I work in corporate crisis management. Finding information is literally my job. So here's your crisis, fix the flower situation in the next 5 minutes, or I turn your entire life into a disaster you can't manage your way out of. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone with shaking hands. He'd researched me. Actually researched me, like I was some kind of corporate threat to be neutralized. The expired tags thing was particularly terrifying. Jake had been meaning to renew them for weeks, but we'd been waiting until payday because even the registration fee was tight in our budget. I looked at the timer on my phone. Sarah was expecting my call back in 37 minutes, which meant I had to decide, grovel to her now and admit defeat, or find a way to turn Brad's own tactics against him. My laptop was still open to Pinnacle Solutions' website. I scrolled through their client testimonials, looking for anything I could use. Most of their work seemed to be standard PR crisis cleanup, helping companies recover from bad reviews, managing social media backlash, crafting apology statements for executives who'd said stupid things in public. But then I found something interesting buried in their case studies section, a detailed breakdown of how they'd helped a family restaurant chain recover from a food poisoning scandal. The strategy involved proactive community outreach, transparent communication with health departments, and, most importantly, immediate suspension of any employees whose personal conduct might reflect poorly on the company during the crisis. Employees whose personal conduct might reflect poorly on the company. I screenshot the page and kept digging. Pinnacle Solutions wasn't just any PR firm, they specialized in family-friendly brands. Restaurants, childcare centers, educational nonprofits. Companies that built their entire reputation on trustworthiness and community values. Companies that probably wouldn't love having a senior director who spent his free time researching pregnant women's financial records and making threats. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, 4 minutes left. But instead of calling Sarah, I opened a new browser tab and started typing. Pinnacle Solutions Employee Directory. Bradley Morrison Professional Complaints. Corporate Ethics Reporting Procedures. 2 could play the research game. And unlike Brad, I had nothing left to lose. My phone started ringing again, the same unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately called back from Jake's phone, which I grabbed from the kitchen counter. Pinnacle Solutions, this is Jennifer, how can I help you? Hi, I need to speak to someone about filing a complaint regarding employee conduct. One moment please, I'll transfer you to our ethics hotline. As hold music filled my ear, I watched my phone light up with another call from Brad. Then a text, time's up. The hold music stopped. Ethics hotline, this is David. I took a deep breath. I need to report threatening behavior by one of your employees. Sir, I need to report threatening behavior by one of your employees, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. Bradley Morrison from your marketing department. I see. Can you describe the nature of these threats? My hands were shaking as I held Jake's phone, watching my own device buzz incessantly with Brad's calls. He's been stalking my family's financial records and threatening my husband's employment because of a personal dispute. He told me he knows where I work, where I bank, even details about my car registration. He's using his position at your company to intimidate a pregnant woman. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. Ma'am, these are serious allegations. I'm going to need to take down your information and get some specific details about when and how these threats were made. Of course. I rattled off my name and contact information, then launched into a carefully edited version of the coffee shop confrontation. I left out the part about destroying vendors, focusing instead on Brad's threats about Jake's job and his casual admission that he'd researched our personal financial information. He specifically said that finding information was his job, I continued, which makes me think he might be using company resources for personal vendettas. I have a recording of part of our conversation if you need it. I didn't actually have a recording, but I was betting David wouldn't ask to hear it immediately. We take these allegations very seriously, David said. I'm going to need to launch a formal investigation, which means I'll be contacting Mr. Morrison's supervisor within 24 hours. In the meantime, if he contacts you again, please document everything and call us immediately. Thank you, I said, surprised by how much relief I felt. I'm 7 months pregnant and I was terrified he might actually follow through on his threats. That won't happen, ma'am. I can guarantee that. As soon as I hung up, my phone rang again. This time I answered. You stupid bitch, Brad's voice was pure venom. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Probably the same thing you did when you threatened my family, I replied calmly. How did you find out so fast? Jennifer from the front desk is my girlfriend. She gave me a heads up that someone was asking about ethics complaints. His breathing was ragged, like he'd been running. You just cost me my job. Actually, you cost yourself your job when you decided to stalk a pregnant woman. I just reported it. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I surprised myself with how confident I sounded. Because now if anything happens to me, my husband, his job, or our family, the first person the police are going to look at is you. Congratulations, Brad. You played yourself. The line went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Smaller. What do you want? I want my $800 back. All of it. And I want you and Melissa to leave me alone. The money's already spent. The deposits, then get refunds. Cancel vendors. Sell something. I don't care how you do it, but I want my money back by Friday or I'm filing a police report for theft. You can't prove Melissa stole anything. Maybe not. But I can prove you threatened me, and I'm betting once the police start looking into your relationship with my family, they'll find the money trail interesting. I paused, letting that sink in. Oh, and Brad? You might want to call your vendors and make sure Saturday's party is still happening. I'd hate for you to show up to an empty venue. I hung up before he could respond, then immediately called Sarah back. Sarah? This is Melissa again. I'm so sorry about the confusion earlier. There was a miscommunication about the venue, but everything's fine. We'll stick with the original flower plan. Oh, thank goodness. I was so worried for you. Actually, Sarah, I have one tiny favor to ask. Of course, honey, anything. I know this sounds silly, but my fiancé is so stressed about making sure everything goes perfectly. Would it be possible for you to call him directly Saturday morning to confirm the delivery time? Just so he knows everything's on track? Absolutely. What's his number? I rattled off Brad's cell phone, feeling a small surge of satisfaction. He'll probably be running around like crazy, but he'd really appreciate the confirmation call. Maybe around 7 a.m.? He's an early riser. Perfect. I'll make sure to call him first thing. After hanging up with Sarah, I sat back and surveyed my handiwork. Brad thought he was so clever, using his corporate connections and intimidation tactics. What he didn't realize was that I'd just handed him a much bigger problem than a cancelled engagement party. By Monday morning, his supervisor would be asking some very uncomfortable questions about his conduct. By Saturday morning, he'd be getting wake-up calls from confused vendors who thought they were being helpful. But my moment of triumph was interrupted by the sound of Jake's truck in the driveway. I quickly closed my laptop and shoved his phone back where I'd found it, trying to look like I'd been napping on the couch instead of orchestrating corporate warfare. "Hey, beautiful," Jake called out as he came through the front door, grocery bags in hand. "How's our little girl doing today?" "She's been kicking up a storm," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. The baby had been restless all afternoon, probably picking up on my stress levels. "How was work?" "Busy. Morrison's got us working on that new shopping center project, so it's been all hands on deck." He kissed my forehead before heading to the kitchen. "But I picked up everything for your favorite pasta dish. Figured you could use some comfort food after the doctor's appointment." My stomach clenched with guilt. Jake was being so sweet, so caring, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd spent the day potentially jeopardizing everything we built together. If Brad's threats weren't just hot air, if he really could affect Jake's job. "Actually, honey," I called out, trying to keep my voice casual, "how secure do you feel at Morrison and Associates? I mean, hypothetically, if someone wanted to cause trouble for you there, could they?" Jake poked his head out of the kitchen, eyebrows raised. "That's a weird question." "Why?" "I don't know, pregnancy paranoia, I guess. I've just been worried about our financial security with the baby coming." "Well, I've been there for 3 years, my performance reviews are solid, and we just landed the biggest contract in the company's history. I'd say I'm pretty secure." He studied my face. "Are you sure everything's okay? You seem off." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice try with the ethics complaint. "Jennifer got fired for the heads up, but it was worth it to watch you think you won. Saturday's still happening. Your money's still gone. And now you've made this personal asterisk." My blood turned to ice. Jake was saying something about dinner, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Brad hadn't backed down, he doubled down. And now some innocent receptionist was out of a job because of my war with him. "Babe, you're white as a sheet. Sit down." Jake was beside me in an instant, guiding me back to the couch. "What's wrong?" I stared at the text message, my hands shaking. Everything I thought I'd accomplished, every clever move I thought I'd made, suddenly felt like I'd been playing checkers while Brad was playing chess. "I think," I said slowly, "we might be in trouble." I stared at Brad's message, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Jake was talking, asking questions, but all I could focus on was that last line, "Now you've made this personal." "I need to call my parents," I said suddenly, struggling to get up from the couch. "Whoa, slow down." Jake put his hands on my shoulders. "Tell me what's happening. You're scaring me." Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen, a picture from last Christmas where she was hugging Melissa while I stood awkwardly to the side. "Hi, Mom. What is this I'm hearing about you harassing Melissa's vendors?" Her voice was sharp, disappointed. The same tone she'd used when I was 12 and accidentally broke one of her precious china plates. My stomach dropped. "What did she tell you?" "She told me that you've been calling around, making up stories, trying to ruin her engagement party." "Please tell me that's not true." I closed my eyes, feeling Jake's concerned gaze on my face. "It's complicated, Mom." "It's not complicated. It's cruel and petty and completely unacceptable." Her voice was rising. "Melissa is in tears. Brad is furious. And frankly, I'm ashamed of you." "Ashamed of me?" The words came out louder than I intended. "Where was your shame when they stole my money?" "Nobody stole anything. We explained this. Family helps family." "Family helps family?" I laughed bitterly. "Then why isn't the family helping me throw a baby shower for your granddaughter?" There was a pause, and when Mom spoke again, her voice was colder. "Because you're acting like a spoiled child instead of handling this maturely. Melissa offered to compromise." "Melissa offered nothing. Her psychotic fiancé threatened my husband's job." Jake's head snapped up. "What?" Mom's voice sharpened. "That's enough. I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this stops now. You're going to call those vendors, apologize for whatever stories you told them, and fix this mess you've created. Or what? Or you can find somewhere else to stay while you figure out how to be part of this family again." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, feeling like I'd been slapped. "Did she just?" Jake started. "She just kicked me out," I whispered. "My own mother just chose Melissa over me again." My phone immediately started ringing. Melissa's name flashed on the screen, and against my better judgment, I answered. "I hope you're happy," she said without preamble. "Mom's crying, Dad's furious, and Brad's talking about pressing charges for harassment." "Good," I said, surprising myself. "Maybe now you'll understand how it feels to have your life destroyed by someone you trust." "I never destroyed your life. I borrowed money from a family account during an emergency." "What emergency, Melissa?" "You still haven't told us what the actual emergency was." There was silence on the other end. "That's what I thought," I continued. "You lied to Mom and Dad, you stole my money, and now you're playing the victim because I fought back. You know what?" Melissa's voice was shaking. "I'm glad I took that money. Because you don't deserve a baby shower. You don't deserve a celebration. You're a bitter, jealous person who can't stand to see other people happy." Her words hit like physical blows, each one finding the vulnerable spots I tried so hard to protect. "And another thing," she continued, "Brad didn't threaten anyone. He was trying to help you understand consequences. But you're too selfish to see that you brought this on yourself. Melissa, I never want to see you again." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the sudden silence of our living room. Jake was watching me with growing alarm, and I realized I was crying. "Okay," he said carefully. "You're going to tell me everything that happened today. Right now." I told Jake everything. Every phone call, every lie I told vendors, every threat Brad had made. The coffee shop confrontation, the ethics complaint, the text messages. By the time I finished, Jake was pacing our small living room like a caged animal. Let me get this straight, he said, running his hands through his hair. You started a war with a guy who works in crisis management, used fake emergencies to cancel vendor contracts, and then filed a complaint with his employer that got some random woman fired? When you put it like that, it sounds insane? Yeah, it does. Jake stopped pacing and looked at me. And now he's threatening my job and your mom kicked you out of the house? I nodded miserably. I know I messed up. I was so angry about the money, and then when Brad threatened us, I thought I could. You thought you could what? Out-manipulate a professional manipulator? Jake sat down heavily beside me. Babe, this guy does this for a living. He gets paid to destroy people's reputations and make problems disappear. My phone buzzed with another text. This time it was from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk, this is David from Pinnacle Solutions Ethics Department. I wanted to let you know that our investigation has concluded. Mr. Morrison provided phone records showing you initiated contact and made false statements about his client's vendors. We consider this matter closed. Asterisk. My blood turned to ice. No. What now? Jake leaned over to read the message. Jesus Christ. He turned the ethics complaint back on you? Another text came through, this one from Brad. Asterisk, told you I was good at my job. Ethics department agrees you're a lying, vindictive woman who makes false reports. But I'm not done with you yet. Asterisk. Jake grabbed my phone before I could stop him and started typing rapidly. What are you doing? I asked. Ending this. His jaw was set in a way I'd only seen a few times in our marriage, usually when someone at work tried to screw him over. I'm telling the psychopath to back off or he'll have to deal with me. Jake, no. You'll make it worse. But he'd already hit send. A few seconds later, my phone rang. Jake answered before I could reach for it. This is Jake, her husband. Yeah, I got something to say to you. His voice was deadly calm. You come near my wife again, you threaten my job again, you even think about my family again, and I will personally make sure you regret it. I don't care what kind of corporate connections you have. I could hear Brad's voice through the phone, but couldn't make out the words. Whatever he said made Jake's face go dark. Is that right? Well, here's something for you to think about. I know a lot of construction workers in this city. Guys who don't give a shit about your fancy job or your corporate friends. Guys who take care of problems the old-fashioned way. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper. Stay away from my family. He hung up and immediately turned off my phone. Jake, what did he say to you? My husband was quiet for a long moment, staring at the blank phone screen. When he finally looked at me, his expression was grim. He said he knows where I work, what projects I'm on, what time I leave the office. He said accidents happen on construction sites all the time, especially when workers get distracted by personal problems. The room started spinning around me. He threatened to hurt you? He threatened to make sure I get hurt. There's a difference. Jake pulled me close, and I could feel the tension in his muscles. This isn't some corporate game anymore. This guy is actually dangerous. My phone, still in Jake's hand, lit up with an incoming call despite being turned off. The caller ID showed a number I recognized with growing dread. Morrison and Associates. Jake's boss. Jake stared at his phone screen, his face going pale. It's Mr. Morrison. Don't answer it, I whispered, but he was already swiping to accept. Hello, Mr. Morrison. Yes, sir, I can talk. Jake's voice shifted into that carefully professional tone he used with his boss. What can I help you with? I watched my husband's face change as he listened, his expression moving from confusion to anger to something that looked like defeat. I see. No, sir, I understand. Yes, I'll clean out my desk tomorrow morning. My heart stopped. No, I mouthed, but Jake held up a hand to silence me. Can I ask what the complaint was about specifically? I see. No, I understand company policy. Thank you for calling. He hung up and sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Jake? I'm fired. His voice was hollow. Effective immediately. Someone called in a complaint about my family situation creating a hostile work environment for other employees. They said I was involved in harassment and threatening behavior that could reflect poorly on the company. I felt like I was going to throw up. Brad did this. He actually did this. The complaint came from someone claiming to be a vendor who felt threatened by my wife's behavior, and who was concerned that I might be equally unstable. Jake's hands were shaking now. Morrison said they can't risk keeping someone whose family creates legal liabilities. We'll fight this. We'll prove it was Brad. We'll. With what money? Jake's voice cracked. We've got maybe $2,000 in checking, rent's due next week, and you're 7 months pregnant. How exactly are we supposed to fight a guy who just convinced my boss to fire me using fake vendor complaints? My phone, still in Jake's hand, buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his face went white. What does it say? Jake handed me the phone with shaking hands. The message was from Brad, asterisk phase 1 complete. Your husband's unemployment is just the beginning. Cancel my party vendors, and phase 2 starts tomorrow. Your choice, asterisk. Below that was another message, asterisk P.S. I know you're staying at 1247 Oak Street. Nice house. Shame if something happened to it while you're dealing with all this stress, asterisk. The address was correct. Our address. He knows where we live, I whispered. Jake stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and peering through the blinds. There's a car across the street I don't recognize. Black sedan. I struggled to my feet, my pregnant belly making me clumsy. Are you sure it's not just a neighbor? It's been there for 20 minutes. Engine running. As if on cue, my phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Mom's number. Mom? I answered, hoping maybe she was calling to apologize, to say she'd figured out what was really happening. I just got the most disturbing call, she said, her voice tight with anger. Brad Morrison called to tell me that you'd been making false police reports and harassment complaints. He said you got his girlfriend fired and that Jake threatened to have him beaten up by construction workers. Mom, that's not. He played me a recording, honey. A recording of Jake threatening him. Is that the kind of man you married? Someone who solves problems with violence? My stomach dropped. Brad had recorded Jake's call. It wasn't like that. Brad threatened us first. He also told me something very interesting about your financial situation. About how you and Jake have been struggling to pay bills. About how you might be desperate enough to lie and steal to get money. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe there never was a baby shower fund. Maybe you made up this whole story because you needed money and thought you could guilt the family into giving it to you. The words hit me like a physical blow. Mom, how can you even think that? Because the daughter I raised wouldn't destroy someone's engagement party out of spite. The daughter I raised wouldn't lie to vendors and harass innocent people. So either you become someone I don't recognize, or you were lying from the beginning. Jake was watching me from the window, his face grim. He mouthed still there and pointed at the street. I have to go, Mom continued. Melissa needs me to help her fix whatever damage you caused. And honestly? Until you're ready to tell the truth and make this right, I don't think we should talk. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. What did she say? Jake asked. She thinks I made up the whole thing about the money. She thinks I'm lying about everything. Jake's expression darkened. And I just lost my job defending a lie? It's not a lie. But even as I said it, I realized how it must look to him. How it must look to everyone. But then I had an idea. A desperate, last resort idea that might save everything. Jake, I need you to trust me one more time, I said, grabbing my laptop from the coffee table. I know how to prove everything. How? Melissa's Instagram. She documented everything about planning this party for weeks. Every vendor, every detail, every conversation about how much money she was spending. My fingers flew across the keyboard. If I can show the timeline of her posts versus when the money disappeared from our account. I pulled up Melissa's profile and started screenshotting everything. Posts from 3 weeks ago showing her at cake tastings. 2 weeks ago trying on dresses. Posts about finalizing details with the best vendors in the city dated the same day the money vanished from our account. Look at this, I said, showing Jake the screen. She posted about making her final deposit to secure the dream venue at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday. The bank shows the withdrawal at 2:47 p.m. the same day. Jake leaned over my shoulder, studying the evidence. She was planning this party weeks before she claimed to have an emergency. Exactly. And look at this caption, so grateful Brad surprised me with the perfect budget for our perfect day. Posted the morning after she took our money. I kept scrolling, finding more evidence. Pictures of flower arrangements with price tags visible. Screenshots of vendor contracts. Even a photo of Brad laughing with the caption, my fiancé is so smart about getting things done efficiently. They planned this whole thing, Jake said, his voice filled with growing amazement. The emergency, taking your money, making your parents think you're lying, it was all calculated. And I can prove it. I started copying all the screenshots into a folder. Every timestamp, every detail, every post that contradicts their story about needing emergency money. My phone buzzed with another threatening text from Brad, but this time I felt something different. Not fear, determination. Send everything to your boss, I told Jake. Show him this wasn't some random family drama. Show him we were being systematically targeted by someone who fabricated evidence to get you fired. While Jake composed an email to Mr. Morrison, I started making calls. First to the bank, requesting a formal timeline of account access. Then to David at Pinnacle Solutions, armed with screenshots proving Brad had lied about the timeline of events. I have new evidence about Bradley Morrison, I told David. Documented proof that he coordinated the theft he claimed was an emergency, then fabricated harassment claims when we tried to recover our stolen money. We'd be very interested in seeing that evidence, David replied. The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls, emails, and evidence gathering. Jake's boss agreed to review the termination decision. The bank confirmed that our account had been accessed using information Melissa shouldn't have had. Most importantly, David called back to inform me that Pinnacle Solutions was reopening their investigation with this new evidence. By Friday evening, everything had changed. Jake's job was restored with an apology. The bank was investigating the unauthorized access. Pinnacle Solutions had suspended Brad pending a full investigation. And Mom finally called back, her voice small and ashamed. I saw Melissa's posts, she said quietly. I saw the dates. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. The money? I asked. Melissa's returning every penny. The engagement party is cancelled. And honey, we want to throw you the most beautiful baby shower you've ever seen. I looked at Jake, who was smiling for the first time in days, then at my laptop screen showing all the evidence that had saved us. I'd like that, Mom. Sometimes the truth really does win.